It was a winter afternoon, and the wind was as cold as needles piercing through the thin coats of those who hurried on the street. David, a middle-aged man with calluses in his hands, was scrambling at a pot of smoky porridge on a familiar street corner. The small shop has no signboard, only a few plastic chairs and an old table, but the aroma of chicken porridge always warms the hearts of those who pass by. David was scooping porridge for a guest when his gaze accidentally touched the image of a skinny, disheveled, curled up on the opposite side of the road. She was about 10 years old. Her big round eyes clearly showed hunger and fatigue. The thin shirt on his body was not enough to shield him from the cold. Unable to leave it alone, David hurriedly scooped up a bowl of hot porridge and walked across the street. He approached the girl, sat down, and said softly, "I ate it to warm my stomach." At first, the little girl seemed apprehensive, her eyes full of vigilance, looking at the strange man. But the warmth in David's voice and gaze made her feel reassured. She gently reached out to receive the bowl of porridge, trembling and scooping up every small spoon. "What's your name? Why are you here alone?" David asked, trying to keep his voice very soft. The little girl stopped eating, her eyes looking down sadly. "My name is Mila. Grandchild. I don't have a home anymore." The words were interrupted, but enough for David to understand. He looked at Mila, his heart heavy. This child had suffered too much, and now he was just a small piece of life lost in the heart of the vast city. "From now on, if you are hungry, you can come here. I'll feed you," David said firmly. Mila looked up, her eyes sparkling with water. It was the first time she felt the warmth of a stranger. From that moment, an invisible bond was formed between David and Mila, beginning a meaningful story of humanity, compassion, and rising from life's difficulties. Mila was born into a poor family in the suburbs. Her parents are manual laborers, working hard to support their family. However, the happy days with the small home did not last long. When Mila was just 8 years old, a sudden traffic accident took the lives of both parents, leaving her helpless in the middle of her life. With no relatives able to take care of her, Mila was placed in a child shelter. But life there is not easy. Loneliness and lack of affection make Mila become more and more closed. One day, she decides to run away from the center with a desire to find freedom again, even though she doesn't know what the future holds. From there, Mila wandered the city's main streets. She lives by picking up garbage and picking up bottles in exchange for every penny. At night, Mila huddled under the eaves, or slept on the park benches. On cold and rainy days, she had to endure the bone-chilling cold that no one cared about. Every morning, Mila carried a large sack through the alleys, her eyes fixed on bottles, newspapers, or anything else that could be sold. The garbage trucks were a familiar place for her to frequent, despite facing the estranged eyes of passers-by or blunt chases. However, Mila has never blamed fate. In those bright eyes, there was always a faint glimmer of hope that one day, life would change. It was in that extreme situation that Mila met David, who changed her life with simple but profound kindness. David is a young office worker, living in a small apartment complex located near the city center. He was a sociable, hard-working, and compassionate person, but his busy life with work and daily worries made David rarely pay attention to the unfortunate lives around him. However, ever since meeting Mila, a little scavenger with clear eyes and thin little shoulders writhed under a heavy sack, David couldn't help but give up. The first time he saw Mila, he simply thought it was a poor child like everyone else on the street. But after a few encounters of the little girl diligently picking up trash regardless of whether it was sunny or rainy, David's curiosity gradually turned into concern. He began to wonder, why would such a child have to wander the streets? Doesn't she have a family? What will be your future if you continue to live like this? Those questions ran through David's mind, even when he was working or resting. David realized that he couldn't just stand by and watch. He recalled his childhood days, when his family was not rich but always full of love. The thought that Mila may have never known the warmth of the family makes David even more obsessed. Initially, David only offered Mila a few meals or some change. But when he saw her eat the bread he had bought, his eyes gleaming with joy even for a moment, David understood that this was not just a temporary responsibility, but a choice of greater significance. David began to think more deeply about how he could help Mila get out of this harsh situation. But at the same time, he was also worried about whether his intervention was really good for her. He was afraid that if he did it the wrong way, it would inadvertently cause unwanted consequences. During the long nights of worrying, David gradually realized that sincere help does not only come from material things, but also from understanding and companionship. I decided not to rush, but to approach her slowly, to build trust and learn more about her life. In David's heart, a fire of determination gradually ignited. Not only changed Mila's life, but also left a good mark on his own life journey. When David decided to help Mila in a long-term way, the idea of opening a charity porridge shop suddenly flashed through his mind. David thinks that this will not only help Mila have a stable job, but also create opportunities for many people in difficult circumstances to share love. However, from idea to reality is a thorny journey. David started with his meager savings, but immediately realized that the number was nowhere near worth the expenses. He had to carefully calculate each expense, from the rent of a small premises, ingredients for cooking porridge, to basic utensils such as pots, bowls, and chopsticks. Many nights, David tossed and turned without sleep, worried about whether he could afford to maintain the porridge shop. The difficulty is not only in finance. David is not a professional chef, so cooking a delicious pot of porridge, which suits many people's tastes, is a big challenge. In the early days, he had to stay up late and get up early, experiment with each recipe by himself, sometimes even have to throw away the whole pot of porridge because it was unsatisfactory. Although tired, David was not discouraged. He said to himself that if he persevered, he would definitely do it. Not only that, David also faced suspicion from those around him. Some of his friends think that opening a charity porridge shop is a fanciful idea that is easy to fail. Some neighbors are even worried that the porridge shop will attract homeless people, affecting the living area. David had to spend a lot of time explaining and proving his good intentions. To reduce the financial burden, David tries to persuade friends and colleagues to donate and support materials. At first, not many people believed it, but when they saw David's determination and continuous efforts, they gradually changed their minds. Some close friends also volunteered to help him cook porridge and serve. The biggest challenge was that when the porridge shop opened, David realized that it was not easy to manage his time and balance his main job, the porridge shop, and his personal life. There were days when he was tired. He had no energy to do anything else. But when he saw Mila smiling to help him distribute porridge, or the appreciative eyes from the people who received the porridge, all of David's tiredness seemed to melt away. Although the road ahead is still difficult, David believes that as long as he maintains his enthusiasm, the porridge shop will become a place to spread warmth, not only for Mila, but also for many people who need help. After a while, David's charity porridge shop came into operation. Things gradually became more stable. The cafe has not only become a fulcrum for Mila, but also a place to help many other disadvantaged people. One morning, as usual, when David and Mila were busy preparing a pot of fragrant porridge in time for delivery, a middle-aged woman with a tired look walked in. She lowered her face, greeted her slightly, and then timidly stood in the corner of the restaurant waiting. David smiled and approached, handed her a bowl of hot porridge, and asked her a few questions as everyone else. But to the surprise, Mila, who had just caught a glimpse of the woman, was stunned. The little girl's little hand suddenly gripped David's hand, and her eyes opened wide in surprise. "Mom!" A soft but emotional call rang out, causing David and everyone around him to turn around. The woman raised her head. Her dull eyes suddenly lit up when she recognized Mila. "Mila, is it really you?" she exclaimed, her voice choking. In just a split second, the two rushed in and hugged each other. Mila burst into tears in her mother's arms, as if the grief and suffering of the past days had been relieved. David stood silent, surprised and moved by the scene in front of him. Through the broken story, David gradually understood everything. As it turned out, this woman was Mila's biological mother. In the past, their family had fallen into debt because of their father's illness. Unable to repay the debt, Mila's mother had to leave, hoping to find a way to support her child. But because it was too difficult, and she couldn't afford to return, she let Mila wander. In her heart, she was always desperate and searching, but with the situation of lack and no information, all efforts were in vain. Today, in the midst of hunger and despair, she happened to pass by a charity porridge shop and decided to stop by. She did not expect that life had led her to meet her daughter again in this place. The emotional story quickly spread among those present. David stood beside him, his heart overflowing with joy. He realized that it was his small deeds that not only helped change Mila's life, but also brought miracles to others. That morning, the porridge shop became unusually warm. Those who stopped by not only received a bowl of hot porridge, but also witnessed a meaningful moment of reunion. David quietly stepped to the back, making room for Mila's mother and daughter. But in his heart he knew that this porridge shop had indeed become a place that sparked hope and love. After Mila's mother and daughter are reunited, their lives gradually become more stable thanks to David's help. But even though she has found her loved ones again, Mila still can't forget the difficult days before. She missed David, the warm bowls of porridge he shared, and gradually realized his kind heart. Even though she had her mother by her side, Mila still felt that she owed David too much. Not only the bowls of porridge, but also the care that he gave her during the past time. One afternoon, while David was cleaning in the shop, he suddenly received a letter on a small table. In the letter, Mila wrote about her deep gratitude to David, about how he helped her overcome the difficulties in life. But what touched David even more was the promise in Mila's letter. "I will never forget what you did for me. Someday, I'll do something to repay you." David read the letter without hiding his emotion. He understands that what he does is not to receive anything in return, but Mila's sincere gratitude warms his heart. He smiled, feeling that his work was more meaningful than ever. A few months later, as the porridge shop grew and helped more people, David received a message from Mila. She found a stable job with her mother, and they were able to support themselves without having to rely on David's help. But the special thing is, Mila and her mother decided to open a small eatery nearby for charity, just like David did. "I want to repay you in my own way. We will make bowls of porridge full of love, just like you did for me the other day." "Thank you, David. I will continue to help people in need, like you helped me." David was touched by Mila's decision. He knew that she had truly understood the value of love and compassion. That is how Mila repays David, not materially, but by continuing to spread the good things that David has sown. Since then, the two porridge shops have become small symbols in the neighborhood, a place of love and compassion, where David and Mila continue their meaningful journeys. After David and Mila had the opportunity to talk about their dreams and how to help the community, Mila decided to open a small porridge shop called Nutrition. A simple name, but containing all the sincerity she wanted to convey. This is not only a place to sell porridge, but also a special space where people can find warmth from bowls of porridge. Despite David's help in designing and preparing the dishes, the porridge shop Nutrition is not like ordinary eateries. Each bowl of porridge here is not only full of nutrients, but also a part of the affection that is taken care of, which is the enthusiasm of Mila and her mother. They always ensure that anyone who comes to the restaurant, whether it is a regular customer or a difficult person, will receive sincere and enthusiastic treatment. With the name Nutrition, the porridge shop has become a destination for poor workers, vagrants, and also those who are experiencing difficulties in life. The restaurant never refuses to serve customers who don't have money, and always has free bowls of porridge available for those who really need help. David visited the restaurant regularly, helping Mila in teaching the staff, and encouraging her to continue to maintain the human values she had initiated. As time passed, the porridge shop Nutrition became more and more famous in the neighborhood, not only because of the delicious food but also because of Mila's loving and compassionate actions. This porridge shop has become a living testament to the power of kindness and love, a symbol of constant efforts to bring joy and hope to difficult lives. Nutrition Porridge Shop is not only a place to eat, but a common home for everyone who wants to find warmth again in the midst of a busy life. Both David and Milan realize that their journey is not only about helping others, but also about making the world a better place through every small action.